terrified child knocks on a vampire's door begging for help. But what she unleashes will change both worlds forever. When ancient blood awakens dormant power, enemies become family and outcasts find belonging. But can even an alpha vampire protect what he loves when both humans and immortals want them destroyed? Elias Voss stood at the edge of the dark woods, watching the small village below. The sun was setting, painting the sky in fiery colors that made his pale skin look even whiter. His tall, lean body cast a long shadow as he leaned against an ancient oak tree. The villagers moved about like busy ants, rushing to finish their work before night fell. "Look at that strange man," a woman whispered to her friend as they hurried past the forest edge, not knowing he could hear every word. "So pale, like he's never seen the sun. And those eyes, not natural, I tell you." Elias sighed and turned away. 200 years of life, and still the stares hurt. Even before he became a vampire, people had found reasons to fear him. As a boy, his unusual height and quiet ways had made him an outcast. His own father had called him a changeling, left by the forest spirits to torment a good Christian family. The small wooden cabin he'd built deep in the Carpathian wilderness was the only place he felt at peace. Inside, the walls were lined with books, treasures he'd collected over his long life. A simple bed, a table, 2 chairs, and a fireplace were his only furniture. He didn't need much. The loneliness was the hardest part. Tonight, as he walked home through the misty forest, he felt the animals grow quiet around him. They sensed what he was. A wolf howled in the distance, and Elias howled back, a sound no human throat could make. The wolf fell silent, knowing a greater predator walked the woods. At his cabin, Elias lit a single candle and sat by the fire. He could see a deer through the window, drinking from the small stream nearby. His throat burned with thirst, but he pushed the feeling away. He would hunt later, taking only what he needed to survive. Unlike others of his kind, he had never developed a taste for human blood. Just as he was about to close his eyes and rest, his sharp ears caught an unusual sound. Small, quick footsteps racing through the forest, a racing heart, and fast, scared breathing. A child. The knock at his door was so soft that a human would never have heard it. Elias stood, confused. No one ever came to his door, certainly not a child. He opened it slowly and looked down. A small girl with wild red hair and tear-stained cheeks stood shivering in the night air. Her simple dress was torn and muddy, and her feet were bare and bleeding. Her wide eyes looked up at him without fear, only desperate hope. "Please," she gasped, her voice small but steady. "They've beaten my mama. She is dying. No one will help us because they say we're witches." Elias stepped back, shocked. This child should run screaming from him, not beg for his help. Yet something in her brave little face stirred memories of his human life, of pain and being alone when others turned away. "Where is she?" he asked, his voice rough from rarely speaking aloud. "The old miller's cottage, by the stream. Please hurry." Against every rule he'd made for himself over centuries of careful survival, Elias stepped out into the gathering darkness. The child took his cold hand without hesitation, and together they walked quickly toward the world of humans he had left behind so long ago. The miller's cottage sat alone by the rushing stream, far from the other village homes. Even from outside, Elias could smell the sharp, iron scent of blood and the sour smell of sickness. The little girl, Mira, pushed open the door with her small hands, and the hinges made a sad, creaking sound. Inside, a woman lay on a simple bed, her breathing shallow and her face bruised. Her red hair, like her daughter's, spread across the pillow like spilled wine. Elias moved closer and felt something strange, a power humming under her skin. She wasn't just a human woman. There was something more, something old and familiar. "Mama found old books under the mill floor," Mira whispered, her eyes big with worry. "She learned things from them. Then people got sick in the village, and they all pointed fingers at us." Elias looked at the woman's wounds. Without help, she would die before the sun came up again. He could hear her heart struggling to keep beating. "I can help her," he said softly, "but there will be a cost." "Anything," Mira said, grabbing his cold hand. "Please save my mama." Elias bit his own wrist, and dark red blood welled up from the wound. He let a few drops fall between the woman's pale lips. Right away, her body shook and her eyes flew open. They glowed amber, like a wolf's eyes in firelight. For 3 nights and days, Elias stayed at the cottage while the woman, Elena, got better faster than any human should. Her broken ribs healed. The cuts on her face closed without leaving scars. And as she grew stronger, Elias learned her story. Elena was special. She came from people called the Moroi, an old family of living vampires who once helped humans and supernatural beings talk to each other. The old books had woken up powers that had been sleeping in her blood for many lifetimes. "Your blood woke something in her," said Vasile, an old vampire Elias visited for answers. Vasile lived in a cave high in the mountains, away from humans and other vampires too. There is an old story that says the last alpha of the old blood would find his mate not among the turned, but among the sleeping bloodlines. Elias didn't want to believe such tales, but he couldn't deny the strange pull he felt toward Elena. As she got better, they would talk through the long nights. She told him about her husband who died from a fever, about raising Mira alone, about finding the old books that changed everything. And Elias found himself sharing secrets he had kept locked away for hundreds of years. He told her about being a healer's son when he was human, about becoming a vampire during a terrible sickness that killed his village, about walking alone for more years than he could count. One night, as they walked along the misty stream, with the moon making silver paths on the water, Elena reached for his hand. When she touched him, his skin felt warm for the first time in centuries. For just a moment, his heart seemed to beat once more. "You're changing," she said, her voice filled with wonder. Before Elias could answer, something whizzed through the air, missing Elena's head by the width of a finger. An arrow stuck in the tree behind them. "Witch!" someone shouted from the darkness. "Demon lover!" The village elder, Grigor, had brought a group of angry men with him. They carried burning torches that made orange light dance through the trees. They had crossbows and sharp wooden stakes gripped in their fists. Their faces were twisted with hate and fear. Elias moved faster than any human eye could see. He swept Elena into his arms, grabbed Mira, and ran through the dark forest. The sounds of the hunting party grew faint behind them as he carried them to his cabin deep in the woods. The door slammed shut, and Elias put heavy wooden bars across it. "We'll be safe here for now," he said, but his eyes looked worried. The next night, when the moon was high, there was a soft knock at the door. Elias smelled the air and knew who it was before he opened it. Vasile stood there, his ancient face grave. "The council has heard of your mortal woman," Vasile said in a low voice. "They think she has the blood that could make our kind stronger." They will come for her, and for the child too. The vampire council ruled from their hidden city under the mountains. They had hunted Eliash for many years, wanting his special blood. Now, with Elena and Mira, they had a way to trap him. Elena stood in the doorway to the small bedroom. Her face was pale in the firelight, but her eyes were brave. She had heard every word Vasily said with her new, sharp hearing. "What aren't you telling me, Eliash?" she asked. The truth came out of him like water from a broken dam. The old stories talked about a powerful vampire whose blood could wake up sleeping magic in others. Together, they could join the human and vampire worlds, making a new family that had the best parts of both. The council wanted to own this power and use it to build an army. "We could run," Elena said, but her voice had no hope in it. They all knew it would not work. The village hunters found them first. Led by Grigor, they had silver weapons given to them by someone Eliash could not see. By dawn, they had made a circle around the cabin. "Give us the witches!" Grigor shouted, his voice shaking with anger. "Then you can go back to hell where you belong, demon!" Inside the cabin, Eliash could feel Elena and Mira getting ready for something. They had found an old magic spell in Elena's books, a binding ceremony that would tie their bloodlines together and make their powers stronger. It was very dangerous. It might even kill them, but if it worked, they would never be the same again. "If we do this," Elena said quietly, "Mira and I can never go back to the human world." "And I can never go back to the shadows," Eliash replied. "We will belong to neither world, and both." The villagers broke through the first door with a crash of splintering wood. Eliash could hear their hearts beating fast with fear and hate. Elena looked at him, then at Mira, and made her choice. She took a small knife and cut her palm. She did the same to Mira's small hand, making the girl wince, but not cry. Then Elena pushed Eliash's shirt aside and made a cut right over his heart, where no blood had flowed for 200 years. "Blood of my blood," she began to say the magic words, pressing their bleeding hands to his wound. "Heart of my heart." The small cabin filled with wild wind as the magic began to work. The flames in the fireplace shot up to the ceiling, then turned blood red. The wind blew so hard, it pushed the village men back from the door and put out their torches. Eliash, Elena, and Mira floated a few inches off the floor, their blood mixing in the air like tiny red stars. Outside, dark shapes moved through the trees. The vampire council had come, drawn by the power they felt. The oldest vampires in the world, they wore black cloaks and had eyes that had seen 1,000 years pass. They did not fight the villagers right away. They watched and waited for the perfect time to grab what they wanted. Inside, Eliash felt warmth flood through his body for the first time in 200 years. His heart, still and silent for so long, suddenly beat, once, twice, 3 times, before finding a slow, steady rhythm. Elena's skin grew paler, and all her wounds healed in seconds. Her eyes now glowed amber, like a wolf's. Little Mira still looked human, but the air around her sparkled with protecting magic. When the magic storm ended, Eliash stepped outside to face both groups of enemies. The early morning light touched his skin, but it did not burn him anymore. His eyes, now a swirl of red and gold, looked at the scared faces all around him. "She is not yours to judge," he told the villagers, his voice deeper and stronger than before. Then he turned to the vampires and said, "She is not yours to take. We are something new. The first of our kind." The leader of the council, a vampire so old his skin looked like paper, stepped forward. His eyes were wide with wonder. The old stories speak of a protector, an alpha who would join the worlds together. We thought we could control this power, but it seems the choice was never ours to make. The fight that followed was short but terrible. With his new powers, made stronger by Elena's magic and Mira's special gifts, Elias moved like a shadow one moment and struck like lightning the next. The council members backed away, knowing they had met something stronger than themselves. The villagers, seeing real magic for the first time, ran away in fear. Only Grigor stayed, falling to his knees in the dirt. "What are you?" he asked, his voice shaking. Elena came out of the cabin with Mira close beside her. The woman who had been beaten and left to die now stood tall and strong. Power flowed from her like heat from a fire. "We are guards," she answered. "We watch over both worlds and those caught between." Many years later, their small cabin had become a safe place for others like them. People with sleeping magic in their blood, hunted by humans and vampires alike, came to them for help. Elias, who had been the loneliest vampire in the world, now found himself the leader of a growing family of special people. One evening, as the sun was setting, he watched Mira, now a teenager with amazing powers, teaching younger children how to use their gifts. Elena came to stand beside him. "Do you wish we had never met?" she asked, taking his hand in hers. Elias looked at their fingers twined together, his no longer dead white but warm with the life her blood had given him, hers now glowing faintly with vampire magic. "I was alone for 200 years, he said softly. "And it took a child knocking on my door to show me what I had been waiting for all that time." In the valley below, the village lights twinkled as night fell. The people there now lived in peace with the strange family in the forest. And in the trees behind them, shadows moved, vampires and other night creatures watching this new community with respect and wonder. Elias, once alone everywhere he went, had finally found where he belonged, not in darkness or light alone, but in the space between, with a family made of both human courage and vampire strength.